This episode is brought to you by Bound Hat Company. Discover Bound Hat Company, where high-quality hats meet a greater purpose. Each hat is designed not only for style, but also to give back, with proceeds supporting charities like the PTSD Foundation of America. Whether for the outdoors or everyday wear, Bound Hat Company has the perfect hat for any occasion. Shop now at www.boundhatco.com and join the movement to support veterans and meaningful causes. Bound Hat Co. Style that makes a difference.
The following podcast discusses sensitive topics. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is struggling, call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline for 24/7 confidential support.
Welcome to Survival in the Trenches, Life Beyond Loss, a podcast where we share the powerful stories of those who have faced extraordinary loss and found the strength to push forward and triumph. These are real journeys of resilience, courage, and hope. Join us as we uncover what it means to rise above, even in the darkest of times. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Survival in the Trenches. My name is Kelly Chandler. I will be your host today. We are honored to have with us Jasen Jones. He is going to walk us through his life beyond loss and how he has turned tragedy into purpose. Thank you so much, Jasen, for being here today.
Hey, thank you, Kelly, for having me, and it's an honor to be here in October for the Child and Loss Infant Awareness Month, so thank you.
Yes, absolutely, and we are very happy that you are here with us as well, willing to share your story and help inspire others as they have experienced similar grief. Before we get into the specifics about your story, I'd like to back up in time and learn a little bit more about you as a young person and share that with our listeners. I was hoping you could go back and tell us where you grew up, what you thought you wanted to do as a young person, and we'll go from there.
All right, thanks, Kelly. Again, thanks for having me, Jasen Jones. I grew up in New Madrid, Missouri, down in southeast Missouri, right on the New Madrid earthquake, the fault line there. My grandparents and my father farmed growing up, so I grew up on a farm. We farmed a lot of cotton, soybeans, hay, you name it. So I grew up on a farm down in southeast Missouri, graduated high school in 1993, and kept pursuing my basketball scholarship at Shawnee Community College, and then transferred to Joliet, Illinois on playing basketball. I graduated there in 97. Decided I wanted to move back to Missouri to be closer to my family. My aunt has said you should try Tan Terra Resort. I'm in the hospitality industry here. So in 1997, I came to Lake of the Ozarks for the first time, and I've been here about 25 years, off and on about 2 years. But did an internship at Tan Terra Resort, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth in hospitality, and this is my 27th year in hospitality today.
That's incredible. And I have to wonder, you grew up kind of with that farming background and you got into basketball. How did you get into hospitality? Was it just people recognized you had a kind of a servant leader type personality, or what got you in that field?
I think I felt like I've been around hospitality my entire life. My grandma was a beautician for 50 plus years out of her house. So always had to be on yes ma'am, no ma'am, with her patrons as well. My grandpa owned a hardware store in Lilburn, Missouri for about 50 years. So I was always around his patrons, and I feel like I've been a servant to hospitality from the day I was born. I love serving people, and 27 years in the industry today, and it still feels like yesterday. I just love helping people, and I think throughout my life's journey, through some hardships, I'm continuing to help people in other fashions now, kind of like what we're going to talk about today with child loss, and trying to help other people cope with life beyond loss.
Absolutely. And I have to say, knowing from personal experience, you're in one of the best parts of the entire country. We know how fortunate we are to live and love the Lake of the Ozarks. And you're not kidding when you say you need to have that hospitality in your blood, because it's very much a tourist town. Even though it is seasonal, it's growing in the sense that people are starting to live there more full time. So you're the face to those people that come and visit. And I think that says a lot about you if you've been in the industry for 27 years and it still feels like you just started. So that's
absolutely.
That's
and you meet so many people on a daily basis. have connections with people that you have no idea. Just in the service industry, it is very gratifying and humbling.
Okay, so after you had established your career on the personal side, can you give us some insight into how things developed with your wife and how you started conceiving a family?
Yeah, like I said, I was started my career here at Tanterre Resort in 1997. I stayed here to about 2011. During 9/11 is when I moved to St. Louis. At that point, after 9/11, I moved back to Lake of the Ozarks. Met my wife at the time at Tanterra. We had an opportunity at that point to travel to Las Vegas and open up a new hotel in Las Vegas. So we literally packed our bags on a blind move. Never been west of Vegas. Packed our bags, a U-Haul, and headed west. We worked in Las Vegas for about a year and a half. We completed that project, and then we were asked to move to Lake Tahoe to transition a hotel there. It was a Caesars hotel that we transitioned into what is now Mont Bleu Resort. While living in Lake Tahoe in the Sierra Nevada mountains, we conceived our first daughter, which our name is Zoe Sierra Jones. So we took the Sierra from Lake Tahoe, living in the mountains there. And at that 2004, we decided to move back to Lake of the Ozarks, where we had our daughter here in Lake of the Ozarks at Lake Regional Hospital in 2012. Was our
Wow.
first daughter that we had here. So we
Yeah.
decided to stay here at the lake. We love Lake of the Ozarks and decided to have a family here.
So you came back to the Lake of the Ozarks and had a daughter, which I love the name, the middle name Sierra. I think that's wonderful that you incorporated that into her name, using that experience that you love so much of being in the mountains.
Yes.
And then you became pregnant with a baby boy. Did you know he was going to be a boy?
Yes.
Yes, you knew he was going to be a boy. Okay. So walk us through your experience expecting your first son and the challenges that you faced and why we're sitting here today.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was. We had our first daughter. It was a great experience. Our son. We were really happy to bring a son into our family. Everything through the pregnancy was going very well. We were really excited to have our second child in our family. Leading up to December 17th, about a week prior, my wife was having some little complications of some pain. Really didn't know where the pain was coming from. Went to the doctor a couple of days prior to December 17th, and the pain continued. So it was, unfortunately, the night of December 17th, about 1 o'clock in the morning, was when her water broke. We delivered our son. She did in our bathroom. Her water broke, and then of course he came out. He was healthy. He was still breathing. He was still alive at the time. That was at the time when I called 911 to get some help, because it was such a traumatic experience. To be there and not really know what to do. In the meanwhile, I had, our 3-year-old daughter was right next door, sleeping at the time, and thankfully never woke up, and had to bear witness to what we had to witness that night. So upon calling 911, the police officer arrived on the scene first, and then paramedics, the ambulance, and then we were transported to Lake Regional Hospital, which we lived about 2 miles away, so it was very close. It was just during that time, my wife at the time had lost a lot of blood. I mean, her life was in danger as well, and it was probably 4 or 5 hours after being at the hospital is when, unfortunately, her son didn't make it.
I'm so sorry to hear that. It's incredibly difficult for someone who hasn't lost a child in that way to imagine the pain and the trauma that you've been through.
And it's 14 years later, and that pain is still there. It's something you just have to be able to know how to manage and how to look at life in a different way. from that perspective. But it's something you live with. And unfortunately, my parents have never lost a child, so they never could console or what to do. And those are things that a lot of people out there don't really understand. How to talk to someone that's lost a child, and sometimes it's not talking at all. It's just sitting there, being present, and just being listening ears for that person. A lot of times you hear, it gets easier with time. That's not really true. You're just able to manage it a little bit differently. But it's something that I personally almost think about every day. I mean, in a positive way. I don't dwell on it. I don't try to be sad. I try to focus that energy in a positive way. We celebrate his life every year on December 17th, and we continue to bring that joy into our lives, as well.
Which is absolutely incredible. And I know you and I spoke about this when we talked last week. It's definitely harder for men to go through these types of tragedies because you're typically taught or you see other men having a hard time with those emotions. And I know that for you, that's less of a problem. That's something that
Yeah.
you feel is important, especially for men, to be able to have the ability to show those emotions and feel that pain. Can you tell me how that's been for you in the beginning and even now, as you still are going through grief? How do you feel like you help men understand that that's okay? Because I know that's something that you advocate for.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's okay to cry, to tell all guys out there, to feel your emotions, to let those emotions just be free, and I look at these tears of happiness, there's tears of sadness, but these tears are, in a way, it's a cleansing, it's letting go and allowing you to really feel your emotions. Because, one thing is for sure, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Those that we love never truly leave us. These are things that death cannot touch.
Right.
The loss of a loved one doesn't mean they are gone. Their spirit lives within us. So it's okay to share those feelings. And, I still get very emotional from time to time, like we did when we first started this. Some days are better than others. And
Sure.
there's some days where you just, it just really hits you really hard. And it's when someone you lose becomes a memory, that memory becomes a treasure.
Absolutely. And speaking about Ozzy for a minute, can you tell me how and tell our listeners how you came up with the name Ozzy?
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It's been a while. We just love that name, Ozzy. Our first daughter's named Zoe, and then our daughter we had after Ozzy was named Tallulah. So we just wanted some just original names. Ozzy's middle name is Clark, and that was my grandfather's last name, which was my hero growing up. And he was a
Yeah.
World War II veteran, POW, missing in action. He owned the hardware store, and he taught me all about the life lessons of life, of death, our Holy Spirit, and how to look at life a little differently. And I see that now in hindsight than I did as a kid, and all the lessons that he taught me. So I continue to try to share this message with people of that your heart can be healed, and there's ways that you can live life beyond loss.
Absolutely. And how have you incorporated Ozzy's memory into your daughter's lives? What are some of the things that you talk through and maybe commemorate since they were so young? Well, and the second one wasn't even born yet. How do you incorporate that into their lives?
Yeah, we celebrate his life every December 17th, whether it be a cupcake, a candle. We go for a walk in nature, a hike. We just spend that time on that day, just in his honor. We talk about him as their brother, and as if he was here. I mean, he was part of our lives, even though my youngest, or they never got to meet him. We do have a picture of him. I even have him tattooed. He was my first tattoo that I got on my arm. That I said if I ever got a tattoo, I would do it in memory of my son. So, he's with me every day. I see him. I think about him. But, I have two daughters that are living now that I have to focus my attention on, with them. But, we celebrate his life and we talk about him in a positive way and try to help other people that have experienced, traumatic losses of a child loss in their life. Because
which
when
is
we lose
incredible.
someone we love, we must not learn to live, without them, but to live with the love that they left behind. And I know they didn't leave that. And, I teach my daughters, we're all born to die. We have to live in the present moment and be happy and let go of the emotions, of anger and frustration and resentment, the what ifs. I mean, all these emotions that really serve no purpose, and focus it on in a positive light, so we can share with others. Because I mean, if you get deep into those emotions, it could take you into a dark place. And through our loss of Ozzy, our family, was in a dark place for several years. I mean, we lost three sons in a matter of about 3 to 4 years, with my sister losing two sons. And her first son, Tyler, was March 28th of 2012. She had to do a natural delivery. It was a very strange situation where his umbilical cord was wrapped around his ankle. And the more he stretched, they cut off the circulation. So, unfortunately, we lost Ty on March 28th. And then we lost Ozzy on December 17th of 2010. And then our recent was Skylar, on July 14th. He was born in 2014, and we lost him in October. And he had what was called a heterotaxy syndrome, which was born with organs in abnormal ways. And he had open heart surgery at birth. And, we were fortunate that he lived with us for 3 months. So, we've went through some really dark days. And, but now we're just trying to shed some light. My sister had actually got a couple proclamations, days dedicated, for these kids with heterotaxy syndrome in the state of Missouri.
I mean, your family's been through so much. And when we talked about this last week, I had to look some of that up because I'd never heard of it. So I'm learning myself. And I think most people that have been through the amount of loss and trauma that you've talked about, and that's only scratching the surface with some other things you've been through personally that we'll maybe touch on here later, they would just give up. I mean, I feel like so many people would not have the same positive attitude that you've chosen to live the rest of your life with. And I don't know if you're born with that or what, but to me, it's just incredible. Your attitude and outlook is very inspirational. And I think I'm happy to share that with our listeners because, like I said, most people would just not want to even get out of bed if something like that happened. And not only are you choosing to live your own life positively, you're doing other things for other people that I want to get into hopefully here next, to help them manage through different types of grief, not specifically or only with infant and pregnancy loss, but any grief. So I'd like to dive into a little bit of what you do physically, and how you've taken that kind of mind, body, and spirit approach going forward.
Absolutely. I think, grief is a powerful emotion that can consume you in ways you never imagined possible. Grieving the loss of a child, no matter what age they were, is a painful process that cannot be rushed. Embracing the feelings associated with the devastating loss, will help you moving forward, healing and along the path to joy. It's in times of tragedy, it can be difficult to take care of yourself. Like you said, your heart may ache, your mind may spiral into a place of despair. By remembering to take care of yourself, you can strengthen your spirit and emerge from the darkness with renewed hope, engaging in activities that bring peace to your mind, soul, and spirit. Some of these things that I have done is I got involved with yoga. about 4 or 5 years ago. Went through some alcohol sobriety. Still sober today, 5 years later. So I focused my energy more inward than outward here at the lake, and helping go through in the yoga has helped me more mindfulness of meditation along with prayer, as where I feel like we dig a little deeper when we go internally, and help others. And with that, I created a class a couple years ago called Healing Hearts. And this was a class originally designed to help other parents that have lost a child. So after the first class, it kind of morphed into more than just child loss. It was open to anyone that have went through a loss, whether it's a mother, father, cousin, friend, or even a heartbreaking relationship. Sometimes that just puts pressure on your heart, and how to live life beyond loss. Those were a few things that kind of took me away and just focused more internally. How can I provide more self care to myself, without sitting at home in bed, and those feelings of why me, why this happened to us, some of the things we don't know. And you look at life and just controlling what you can. And that's where we're at, is just staying in the present moment. Anything in the past, we can't go backwards. And tomorrow's not really here yet. So all we can do is just stay present with ourselves, and just believe in our higher power and our source as well.
It's incredible. I feel like you're breaking down a lot of barriers. And that's another reason why I'm excited for our listeners to hear this because, gosh, I mean, yoga in the past, that was always just for females. You never heard about men getting into it as much, or it's definitely a female dominated practice, if you will. And so I think that the fact that you're trying to promote being number one, emotional, number two, involving your body, looking within, all of those types of mental, I guess, awareness approaches that I feel could really help so many people. And I feel like so many people are afraid to reach out in that way. I don't know if I'm making sense, but explain to me how you're connecting and maybe pulling people out of the woodwork through this approach, through the Healing Hearts class, or just that mental approach.
Yeah, just sharing my story of being vulnerable, and it's amazing the people that have reached out, that I stay connected with. When I see their post about the loved one that they've lost, and you can really just feel their pain, because until you've experienced it, it's really hard to relate to someone. And you might hear people say, "I understand how you feel," but you really don't until you've experienced it. So it really helps other people when I share my story, that I'm giving advice or my own personal opinion of how I deal with things in life, because I've experienced it. And I think they relate a lot closely to me, because we are connected, and you can call it a grief club.
Yeah.
A lot of people, will look at it that way, but we're not trying to turn grief into sadness. We want to turn it into a positive way, and shed some light to other people that it's okay, and it affects everybody differently. Everybody can look at things a little differently as well, but just trying to be positive, and that's part of your brain, is we're trying to retrain your receptacles in your brain from negative thoughts, and just implement it with a positive thought. And over time, those thoughts will start to fade away a little bit, the negativity, and you can live your life in a better way without having to cope through that loss. But it is tough. And I've talked to people that it's been 30, 40 years since they've lost their child, and that pain is still there. But as a friend or someone that's trying to cope with someone like that, and like I said, just be present, and just sit with yourself, and just feel your emotions. Sometimes you don't have to say anything at all. Just being there for that person is enough.
Absolutely. I recall an interview we did with a woman who lost her son to suicide. And she mentioned, kind of like you did a little bit earlier, that grief groups and things of that nature are sometimes positive at first, but then they kind of stay in the negative, right? They kind of keep talking about just the loss component. And she stated that she just can't do that anymore because it's not taking her through the grief in a positive manner. So I feel like what you're talking about is exactly the type of things certain people need. They've got to get out of that negative. They've got to get out of the that phase of the grief. I know there are the different phases of grief, and I feel like your approach is definitely very positive. And you found that you're opening it up not only to people who have lost children, you're expanding that because you see its positive effects,
Absolutely.
which
It's
is
in times
commendable.
of struggle, seeking support from others is crucial for emotional healing. Losing a child can be an overwhelming experience. And navigating the journey of grief can be an uphill battle. Just reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness, but it's a display of strength. To be able to reach out and help other people. Losing, a child is one of the greatest tragedies that could befall any parent. In your grief, you might feel confused and full of despair, asking why this happened to me. It can seem like there will never be joy in your life again, even though your sorrow may feel deep and impenetrable. You can still exist despite an unimaginable sorrow. I mean, you have to look at life. We'll move on. 10 out of 10 of us are going to die in life. I mean, we wake up to our breath. That'll be the last thing we do when we exit this world is breathing. So it's just kind of being aware of that and just trying to live life to the fullest in your own self-care and just staying present in the moment. And in that class, you said when, my class has morphed from people from suicide to murder to child loss. I mean, it's across the board how death affects other people. So it's very important, to reach out to people and, get involved in groups and things like that where we can sit in a circle. The class, we usually open up with a guided meditation or prayer as well. Prayer is mentioned 33 times in the Bible. So we go through a meditation prayer. We connect hands as unity. Yoga is a union. So we become one together without judgment, without shame. A lot of times I'll ask them to bring a picture of the one they lost, so we can talk about that person, so the whole group gets to know that person a little bit. And it's real important, for people that have lost a child, that they have a platform, where they can just talk about the one they lost, and it becomes pretty powerful and very provides a lot of strength for that parent. And joy as well, just to be able to talk about the one that they've lost, whether it was yesterday, a year, 10 years, 20 years from now. It's just very important, and I think it's created a lot of positive light and love, for this group.
It's incredible. I just have to say, I love what you're doing. It's very out of the box. And I just think the attitude that you have is absolutely incredible. Now, tell us how we find you, because you've taken this class outside of the lake area. I think you said you've done it like in Jeff City or maybe some other areas. Tell us a little bit more about how, like, when you do it, what the structure is, where we can find you online, etc.
Yeah, right now I teach Mondays at 6 o'clock at Infinity Float Spa here in Lake of the Ozarks. I teach a certified Kundalini yoga instructor. Kundalini is the yoga of awareness. So it was the yoga that really inspired me through sobriety, through the child loss, through a heart attack 3 years ago. This is more of a spiritual and mental approach to yoga versus a physical form. So it's going inward a little bit more. And I teach in Jeff City right now about one time a month. October 19th will be my next class in Jeff City. And it's a lot of guided meditation. It's a togetherness, one in union. Where we connect all hands together or do things as a group in one. As well. And the Kundalini, like I said, is more of a spiritual approach to yoga. where it allows you to kind of go inward a little bit more and kind of escape the reality for at least an hour. And again, it's a no judgment, no shame. This practice is open for anyone, whether it be a child to a to an adult, and there's no experience necessary. I've had people that don't want to do all the poses, and they're very simple. And I tell people they can just come and sit in the class. They don't have to do anything, and they won't be looked at any differently, other than just being present and maybe hear a message or hear something that might give them a little bit of hope, a little inspiration. And that's all we're really trying to do, is just provide that hope and inspiration to other people, that you're not alone. Everyone in life struggles, but to have a group that have experienced the life of a lost one, you are not alone. And sometimes that is comforting, unknown, to know that there's other people out there that feel the same way you feel about the loss of the one they've lost.
Yes, I completely agree with that. Just knowing there are other people going through something similar, and they don't really have to do exactly what maybe they think they're expected to do. Allowing them to come to that class, just sit there, kind of take it in, and use it in the way that works for them. I think that's also incredible. That way, if they don't want to do it, because I think of yoga, I think of the crazy poses and things of that nature.
Yeah, no headstands are required.
Yeah.
But it's nice to go inverted and look at life in a different perspective. But here's a few tips on how to listen to someone with the loss of a child, so they feel safe and heard and supported. Just be a heart with ears. Follow every word they say and just stay in the moment. Be patient. Give them time to talk without interrupting. It can be hard for grievers to formulate their thoughts and words, so they may take longer than usual. Similar to what I did with you, the first experience. And, I personally thank you for, being there and listening to me, because, these waves, emotional waves kind of hit you when you dive a little deeper into the situation. And, I thank you for, being there and listening to me as well. And just let that person share without judging, correcting, criticizing, or analyzing them. Those are just a few helpful tips that will help those that you're trying to help, a friend, a family member that is experiencing a loss of a child.
That is wonderful advice. And, you know, it's so important for people that haven't experienced something like that to know what to do, because it's awkward at times. You don't know how to support someone. You want to go in with the best intentions, and sometimes you might put your foot in your mouth, or you just don't know what exactly to say. So I think I love the heart with ears. Just letting that person process in their own time and in their own way is very important to know. So many people have expressed that they feel that they can't talk about their loved one that they've lost because they feel like they're being judged or what have you. And just to know that you have that good advice, I think that helps people on either side just know how to handle someone that has been through something so tragic. I mean, until you've been through it, you just don't know. So I love that you're helping give that advice so people can just communicate in a better way.
Yeah, grief can be overwhelming, so people know that you're never alone in this journey. And there's support groups out there, even on Facebook. I mean, there's support groups out there that I'm involved in as well, and you just hear stories and just try to offer a little bit of support and encouragement, inspiration to those people. Goes a long ways.
Absolutely. And just because it's so interesting, and I feel like this even speaks highly, more highly of you, you've been through some stuff. I mean, in your life, you've already alluded to it. So obviously we're here to talk about infant loss, which in and of itself is tremendously traumatic. Then you've been on a sobriety journey. You've had a heart attack. And the last thing that you should share with the listeners, because I think it's insane. You can tell them.
Oh, the copperhead snake bite.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an experience in alone. I think we're all here on this planet to experience things. I'm not sure why I experienced the worst of things sometimes, but there's always a reason for everything to happen. And during COVID, I was quarantined. I was totally fine, but it was during that time we had to do a 2 week quarantine. So my first day on quarantine, I lived out in the country and I was moving a log pile. And of course, the very last load of the day, there must have been a copperhead in a hollow log. So when I dumped the wheelbarrow over, I got bit on the foot by a copperhead snake, and I literally told myself I had 30 minutes, I was going to die, so I need to get to the hospital. So I went to the hospital, and thankfully I didn't have none of the venom that snakes that the copperheads have. But it was a 12-day experience, a healing experience from the beginning to the end. But in light of this copperhead bite, I created my first yoga class I ever taught. Was called a Cobra Yin class, and Yin is the yoga of surrender. So I dug a little deeper into the origins of snakes, their meaning as a new birth, rebirth, transformation, and that was part of the journey I was going through my sobriety was the transformation process. And snakes also go through a slothing process where they have to shed or die. And as us humans, we go through the same process. If we don't, allow things to let go, it restricts us from allowing us to grow even further. And this is a good, this time of the year, as the tree leaves are falling, it's a good reminder for us to let go of the things that we cannot control. And those are also those thoughts of the what ifs and, things we cannot control. We have to, allow that to let it go. Really just sit with ourselves in darkness. When we close our eyes and we focus inward with our mind's third eye, it's in darkness is a breeding ground for creation. I look at and I teach that when we plant our seeds of intentions, our goals deep into Mother Earth, those are being planted in darkness. The stars only shine at night in darkness. A mother carries her child in her womb in darkness. So darkness is a breeding ground for creation. In order for us to see the light, we have to go through the darkness.
It's incredible. And I feel like, I mean, you're so inspirational, and you could be a motivational speaker with everything you've gone through, and it's tremendous. Like, I have the utmost admiration for your attitude, and I feel like the people listening to this will just be like, wow, amazing. So I want to thank you for your willingness to share everything you've been through, most specifically today as we talked about Ozzy. I feel like it's so valuable for people to know, especially men, that there are steps you can mindfully take to get you in a more positive mindset. And
Absolutely. And
with your attitude, your class, your history of other things that have happened to you, I mean, it is possible through all of those things to get to a better place in life. So was there anything else that we should have covered, you would like to cover today, when you express to our listeners, how they can move forward in a positive
yeah,
way?
absolutely. Starting October 23rd, I'm actually launching my first yoga class here at the lake called Broga. So this class is designated for guys only. So it is trying to take the stigma away from yoga, where it's a place for guys to come. We'll have a little fellowship. We'll probably do a little workout. We'll do some meditation. We'll have a group circle as well, and just kind of connecting a little bit more without the other things that go along with yoga as well. So this will be a first time class here at the lake. They're just trying to connect with more guys and let guys know that it's okay to share your feelings, to feel your feelings, because when you don't let go, and what happens is you create these blockages in your body, and then it almost stops you from living your full alignment. So when you're able to fully release and fully let go, things will begin to change in a positive manner for you. I focus a lot of my classes around the heart chakra. I do the chakra balancing as well, where I really believe in the chakra system is that you live in full alignment by allowing your chakras to be open. And with the Healing Hearts class, I really focus more on the heart, which is the fourth chakra in the system. It's the color green. This is a chakra that radiates the energy of unconditional love, compassion, empathy, forgiveness, and kindness. Like I said, it's the color green. It's located right in the middle of your chest. It's when your heart chakra is open and healthy, you have a sense of oneness and can transcend the duality of the physical world. So I even allow people to try to use your imagination and visualize as if you're inhaling a green illuminating light of air, that when you inhale it, it's going to fully engulf internally and create this green energy in your body from your head to your toe, and then expand beyond your aura, so that you are radiating light and love, compassion, and the things I just mentioned there as well will begin to transcend your journey in a more positive manner. And just creating some affirmations, that we began, like intentions. Affirmation are just positive statements that you want to see come to fruition in your life. And I'm a huge believer in manifestations through the law of attraction. Is what you visualize and what you want to see come to fruition in your life. And visualize that as if it's already happening, and feeling those emotions that you're crossing that finish line of how happy and exhilarating that feeling is before it even happens. And that's how you're going to get to that end result. And one thing I'd like to note is that, people who practice love say they experience more positive emotions, relish good life experiences, enjoy improved health, and build stronger relationships. It could be as simple as setting an intention of love, for your yoga practice, for your daily walk, or anything that you do in your life, and reflecting on three things every day that you're grateful for. Waking up to having your breath, in the morning, and just pausing for a minute, without getting on your phone and looking at Facebook, or taking that first few minutes in the morning of just fully gratitude for you, because we all have something that we can be grateful for, even through loss of a life of a child. I mean, I'm so grateful for my two daughters, for my life as well. And, we will all reunite one day together again. And I strongly believe that is, finding that centering thought, find compassion and love for your own journey, for all of your strengths and all of your struggles. Then call in compassion and love for all beings everywhere, wishing them health, happiness, and ease on their journey as well.
It's incredible. I almost feel like you could have your own meditation app. Like, those apps that people listen to, you're so positive, and it makes me feel better talking with you. Even not having gone through anything remotely close to what you've experienced, I feel a lot of it's just inspirational in terms of, I want to look at my life in a more positive way. Even the small things that drive you nuts, it's just funny how that can take over your brain. And like you said, mind over matter. Just, don't let that stuff get to you, large or small. You've got to envision yourself on a more positive path, and just let that manifest even in your brain before it happens. I love that
Yeah.
approach.
Thank you.
It's easy, I think, to go in a downward spiral and let the negative thoughts take you over. And it's almost like it's a simpler way of doing things. You have to really practice being positive, I think, at times,
Just
because it's almost like
control
you
it.
have to be your own cheerleader,
You do.
So
You do. You just control what you can, and that's all we can do. Throughout everyone's own journey is trying to find a positive place. I mean, because it can be a very dark side, and it will lead you to darker things that's not really good for your self care. And I'm always available to talk to anybody, to listen, to share my story, to try to offer some inspiration to anyone out there. My phone number is 314-401-5518. You can reach me on Facebook. It's Jasen Jones. I also have my dedicated yoga page, Yoga with Jasen Jones, aka Yogi J. Namaste all day. We're going to stay positive and continue to help people, through whatever you're going through. That a lot of these things it's not forever. It's just temporary. Like I said, pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional.
Thank you for all the great information. And it's no secret that I wore green on purpose.
Yes. Thank you.
Green is the color of hope also, and so many other things that you mentioned. And I feel like it's great to get in tune with some of that nature or natural element stuff. It's inspirational as well. So, and wow, you provided so much personal information that you're fine with sharing, and I think that's a tribute to who you are, and again goes back to your hospitality roots. So thank you for that, and I hope that our listeners will take you up on that offer and or at least follow you, even if it's quietly on Facebook or what have you. So. Thank you today for joining us and for all of the great information you shared. I hope that you're able to move forward in a positive light, although I feel like you're already well on your way. And I understand that grief comes and goes in waves, as you and I have talked about a few times. And thanks again.
Well, thank you, Kelly. And I will end. My last quote is one of the quotes that I do in my Healing Hearts class to those upon ending. It's, my peace I give to you, my peace I leave with you. I do not give to you as the world gives, so do not let your hearts be troubled and do not be afraid. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. You've been listening to Life Beyond Loss, a podcast from Survival in the Trenches. If you'd like to get involved and help those struggling to cope with personal loss, visit us at our website, survivalitt.com, and follow us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast so we can continue to grow and reach more people in need. Together, we can make a difference.